Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Tonight we will be focusing on the unfolding situation in Gaza, where death toll has of course crossed over 40,000 people. Almost 2 million people, more than 85% of Gaza's population has been displaced from their homes. When we talk about the misinformation, the situation is dire, where misinformation is used as a tool in this ongoing conflict. Meanwhile, in Israel, the protesters are on streets in tens of thousands in numbers, and they are demanding a ceasefire. But the question remains, will Netanyahu's government change its stance on, of course, ceasefire situation? And when we look at the international efforts on a ceasefire, now it have reached at a point where it is take it or leave it deal. We will be talking about the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza and what needs to be done by the international community in this regard. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Ms. Maria Iqbal Tarana, who is human rights activist. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Mr. Sheharyar, who is analyst. Welcome to the program. And we're joined online by Dr. Amna Mehmood, who is international relation expert. Welcome to the program. So, Ms. Maria, let me start with you. When we talk about this ongoing humanitarian crisis that has been, of course, the world is witnessing since October the 7th, 2023, how would you describe this situation in regards to the international law?
Thank you very much, Maryam, for inviting me to your show. And of course, it's a very important topic of the day, honestly. And when we look at this Gaza situation, I think in our lifetime we have never witnessed something like the more crucial situation where the civilians are being targeted. And as you said, 85% of the population has already been displaced. So I don't understand sometimes where the international laws and international, the community or the international government, the people who are being running and having it taking a part in the running this whole world is being thinking, because 85% of this population tomorrow they are being displaced. So the whole world is in a crisis, not only that particular region, because these people will go through something which will upset the whole world, because the trauma, the socio-economic, political situation in an entire world. If you look at the human rights situation, and if you see a little child has been witnessing dying of his parents,
and around
grandparents.
600,000 children are under rubble.
Rubble, exactly. And when somebody says it's 40,000, sometimes I don't believe that, because they are being bombarding each and every day for the continuously. It's going to be almost 1 year now. So if you are targeting 500 people every day, each day, so if you count up to 500 into 300, so where's this, the figure? So it's very unfortunate. But what I have recently witnessed when I was traveling abroad, it's very unfortunate, most of the governments, they are quiet, and I think Netanyahu, who is the Hitler of 21st century, is being praised, and it's very unfortunate to actually witness in this era where we think we are living in a .com era, is an era of information, but at the same time the misinformation, disinformation that also exists, which upsets the international community the most. But I really appreciate the people who are being trying to demonstrations. They are coming out. They still have the conscience.
Right, but let me take the same question to Sheharyar. Sheharyar, what's your take on this situation unfolding, where more than 40,000 people have been killed so far? What are the key factors, in your opinion, that we are still witnessing this unprecedented violence in Gaza?
So, Maryam, the situation is quite clear now. If we look at the Israeli side, I don't think international human law or even release of hostages, which was given as the objective of this war that Netanyahu and his cabinet had initiated, those objectives, I think they were just a smokescreen. And the greater objective of this whole act of violence was to basically clear the whole area of Gaza, to conduct international or internationally televised genocide, destroy all infrastructure, and drive the people of Gaza away from their ancestral homeland. And then with time they would want to basically take over this area and gain full control over this land. So I think that's the greater objective that we are observing now.
Right, right. But at the same time, Dr. Amna, when we look at the situation within Israel, of course, the international pressure is mounting each day on Netanyahu's government. But at the same time, within the country, after killing of 6 hostages, of course, tens of thousands of people are now on streets. Do you think these demonstrations can lead to a policy change on part of Netanyahu's government?
Thank you for having me here. I would comment on this. We have been watching this genocide, and you see that we have witnessed the decision of the International Court of Justice that declared Netanyahu a terrorist and Israel as illegitimate state. Despite all that, the Western powers and the Western allies of Israel are not ready to compromise on their stance on this war, that they are standing with Israel. And same is the case with the demonstrations all over the world, especially in Western capitals. Thousands of people, not millions of people, came out, and there was no impact on the policies of Israel and on the policies of their Western government as well. But you see, from last 2 days, we are witnessing large crowds. They are coming in out in Tel Aviv, and they are protesting on the policy of Mr. Netanyahu that he promised that he will bring back these hostages, and on that account, he continued the war for the last 10 months. And now they are making hue and cry, and they want to make the policy change, or rather they are demanding for the government change. And I think that that would work. Yeah, only the people of Israel, they can change the government and government's policy. Mr. Netanyahu is still he is on his policy. Today he witnessed a public meeting, and he said that he apologized from the people, but he is not ready to stop war. In fact, as Sheharyar mentioned, the war is having different aims. He want to escalate war. He want to capture the whole Palestine. And as we see the Google Maps, that they are not showing Palestine as a country, and that is the objective of Mr. Netanyahu. And he is not going to stop war less than that. But the demonstration by the people of Israel can make a difference if they want to really.
Right, right. But coming back to situation in Gaza, Dr. Amna, we are more than 85% of Gazans have been displaced from their homes. How do you think this has impacted Israel's, this current unfolding situation has impacted the diplomatic relations with the neighboring countries, especially when the neighboring countries are also now refusing to take in more refugees? How this is also contributing to the regional instability?
I think that this is not the case. Regional countries are not taking any refugees. The Rafah borders are sealed. Only few could escape through some means by having uh, some humanitarian ground patients to the hospitals of Syria and Egypt. Only those people escaped, and all are displacing from here and there again and again. And it is very unfortunate that the whole Arab world that is quiet, and they are not responding to the humanitarian crisis here in Palestine, and they are watching with all the rest of the world the genocide of the Palestinian people. Actually, uh, whenever there would be struggle is run by the nation itself. The proxies of Syria and Lebanon, they are helpful, and similarly the Houthis, they are helpful to highlight and to give tough time to the Israel, but not on diplomatic front. There is no support for Palestinian people, except the talks going on in different capitals like in Cairo and in Qatar and Doha, etc. But these are having least impact because Israel simply refused to compromise on ceasefire. They don't want to have permanent ceasefire, while the Hamas is insisting on permanent ceasefire. And without permanent ceasefire, there would be no solution to the problem. Otherwise, the same situation would prevail as it is prevailing for the last 20 years since 1993. I think 33 years. So I think that diplomatic level, the whole Arab world, especially put pressure on Israel, stop their commercial relations with Israel, and insist them to stop this war. Otherwise, there would be no pressure from any of the country. And
Right.
this is the time when the people of Israel are standing. So the diplomatic efforts should be consolidated and they should be augmented to come to the solution.
Right, right, right. But let me talk about the humanitarian situation within Gaza, Maria, where we see that around and more than 70% of schools have been either damaged or destroyed by Israel's aggression. So, in your opinion, what kind of international support is needed at this point in time, and how can we move towards a peaceful solution?
Yeah, after almost 1 year, actually, we've been thinking how, before the whole infrastructure, 100%, people say 70, 80%, but on ground, the situation which, we observe or we've been talking to the civilians or we got in touch with the families, it's really scary because 100% the infrastructure has been gone, especially in a health and education sector. There's no school where children have to join back to, or there's no health facility. So I think after a year, it's a dilemma, it's a question for the whole world actually how they will come together. But first and foremost, when it was happening, we have to question those people, like those governments, how many of them actually stood for the ceasefire, because the questions are still there. As a 90s a child who grew up in 90s, I always ask myself how that Second World War happened, because when we were exposed to the social media and we got all that information of Second World War, actually we used to cry on those situations that how actually the world on this, the people on this earth let Hitler to commit that atrocities. But in 21st century, 2024, we have still been talking about the incidents which happened 100 years back in 1918 and 1935. So actually the big question at the moment is to ask this whole world what they want actually. Is US policies taking the world on the right track? Is OIC, is the Muslim countries taking the world on the right track? Because this crisis will not only affect Gaza, Israel, it will destabilize the whole region because Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, they're already in crisis in the whole world. It's not about the region, I'm saying it's the whole world. It will affect where all these people will go with the mental health issues. And one question more, because when the allies troops, they are sending their people to fight against Hamas or whoever the civilians, once they will go back to those countries, US, UK, what mental state they will just be normal with other people? So that's a big question actually.
Of course, so the violence is not going to be ending
anytime soon
at this point in time, but of course the generations have to bear the brunt of this violence. But Sheharyar, coming back to the situation in Israel, how do you see the significance of Monday's strike in Israel? Especially it was for putting economic pressure on Netanyahu's government, but he's still adamant not to change his policy regarding ceasefire. And also reportedly now there are reports like US is also saying that this will be the final deal, like take it or leave it. So how do you see all this situation?
So Maryam, like when it comes to especially the main character of this whole saga of Netanyahu, he's like now proven that this whole conflict is about his personal, political and personal life gains. And it's not about hostages and it's not even about a ceasefire anymore. And unfortunately, even in the Israeli war cabinet, most of the members that are part of his cabinet are extreme right-wing Israeli Zionists. So if the pressure that we are seeing on the streets, over 500,000 people came out in protest
But
for.
Netanyahu's government is still claiming that those were politically motivated protesters.
Exactly, that's exactly what Hasina Wajid was also saying a few days before, that you know, people who are like trying to throw me out are obviously like political motivated or like paid agents or something. But the situation on the ground is very different. The situation on the ground is that now at least the families of the hostages, they have realized that Netanyahu has basically sacrificed them. There are no intentions on the Netanyahu government to bring those hostages back, and their war objectives are to prolong the war. Their war objectives are also to get the whole region engulfed in a wider conflict. And this is how they basically feel that the US will always be supporting them, and they would be able to neutralize a lot of support, a lot of threats that they perceive from Lebanon, from Syria and from the surrounding countries as well. And if they continue on this rampage, they would pull in the US and their European allies and make this war a bit more prolonged. We also like see when you discuss the whole ceasefire agreement that is being discussed. This ceasefire agreement has been the same since the last like 7 to 8 months. Every time.
And when we talk about this was a lot of points were agreed upon in May 2024,
Exactly.
right?
But every time Netanyahu adds a new line to the agreement, and that obviously puts, you know, that's not acceptable to Hamas and the rest of the stakeholders. And even Egyptians and the Qataris now are basically saying that every time we are like nearing a deal, Netanyahu comes up with a new demand. And now his latest demand is that he wants troops to stay in Gaza and they want to take over the Philadelphia corridor, which is like,
that
you know,
is major point of contention at this point in time.
So Hamas basically says that they don't want any foreign troops or any occupation troops to be on their territory, and they want all the troops to leave. And this is like something that is a sticking point, and this is something that Netanyahu doesn't want to agree to. So this is now a stalemate situation. The stalemate works in the favor of Israelis. It does not work in the favor of the people of Gaza, the Palestinians, and the people who are suffering the brunt of this whole conflict. Now, very recently, 2 days ago, the head of UNRWA, he basically gave a very important statement. He basically said that the Israelis are even placing Google ads on social media and on Google
to block
the aid.
and this is the disinformation that you were referring to in your introduction as well. And they are stopping, and this is again a blatant violation of human rights.
How do you think that this has impacted the provision of aid to the Gazans? When we talk about Lazarini's statement regarding blocking of the Google ads.
So this has really impacted the way, because like UNRWA generally works on donations that comes from people, and then some countries basically fund them. The US has stopped funding it. They also like fund it very occasionally, and the Israelis have made it a very controversial UN agency, and they have like lobbied internationally to even, you know, dismantle UNRWA, which is the only UN agency that is actually doing work on ground. They run hospitals, they run schools, they have infrastructure, and this is the only lifeline that the Palestinians have at this time. And blocking civilian humanitarian aid is also a blatant violation of international human rights law and the Geneva Conventions as well. And a bombing of schools, critical infrastructure, hospitals, again is a violation of the Geneva Conventions. But now the way the situation is going, I personally think that Hamas and rest of the stakeholders like Egypt, like Qatar, and the surrounding regional players as well, they basically feel that the US is not really a neutral party. So it's a party to the conflict. So any ceasefire deal that is being pushed by the US has the best interests of Israelis or the Israeli Zionists at hand, but not really the entire region or the people of Palestine.
Right, right. And when we talk about the recent attempts at a ceasefire deal, Dr. Amna, what's your take on, of course, the recent statement and the reports that the US is now saying that take it or leave it? So, what it means for the ceasefire or negotiated efforts to end the violence within Gaza, and do you think there are prospects for reaching a peaceful solution at this point in time?
Thank you, Mariam. There are multiple questions you raised. First, I would add to what Maria was saying that actually the number of psychological patient and deserted from Israeli army is the largest because they are involved in genocide of the Palestinian for such a long period. After every genocide effort, after every intifada, hundreds of Israeli soldiers and officers are withdrawn from the army on the account of the psychological problem. They are dismissed and they are sent to asylums. Secondly, you see that there is no rescue for the Palestinian people. They are just confined in a cage of 18 miles and a very small stripe, and they are sent from here and there, and then they are told that that part is safe and you should move there, and then the bombardment is done exactly on that place just to have more and more casualties. So the number is not 40,000. That is, I think that is much underestimated. Now we come to the question you raised that, as I would add to Sheharyar, but he said that humanitarian law, everything starting from 7th October is against humanitarian law, against international law. And US is the party from the day one. You see that Mr. Blinken was having 2-3 rounds of the whole world toward the whole world. Actually, it was not in the support or not to stop war. It was in to gather the support of the world in favor of Israel and to convince the whole world that they should be neutral or either support Israel. And now we come to Egypt and Qatar and the rest of the powers of Arab and the Muslim world. They are just spectators. They knew that Israel is supported by United States, and some of them are allies of the United States, and they are standing with United States. That's why this situation is here, and we have crossed 10 months of the conflict. As Sheharyar said that the stakeholders, and you said that the stakeholders are actually the Hamas if the ceasefire is not done. But I don't think, I think that Palestinians have nothing to lose except their life. And they have lost such a large number of lives and such a large number of casualties that is unprecedented. So they are ready to sacrifice even more, but they would not compromise on their interest that there would be no corridor in Palestinian, territory, and there would be no further attack on Palestinian territories, and that should be the part of this agreement. Otherwise, the agreement is having no value, and especially when they would release the hostages, then they have to. There would be no restriction, and even then, Israeli population will not come out in their support. So I think that compromise should be on the terms of Hamas, not on the terms of Mr. Netanyahu. And the potential of making a decision in favor of this ceasefire is in the hands of Israeli people. 500,000 are out, and they are talking about their own interests because they are losing their economy, they are losing their peace, and much of them have been moving out of the country because they came here for rest and for peace, and they want to have their own peaceful state, but that is not available to them. So I think this is the time that the whole world should support people of Israel, that they can speak in favor of the peace in the region, and they would be the major stakeholder if there would be the peace. Otherwise, they would be having the wars in the same way. So I think United States, we have no hopes from the United States. When United States say have it or not, it means that they want to insist, they are pressurizing the whole Arab world as well as the Palestinian to accept this unwanted solution, unwanted agreement on the terms of Mr. Netanyahu, which they are not ready to. I think they should not accept at this time, and United States has to face it, because now in the elections of presidential election of US, you will see the change of result, change of the command there as well. As we have seen in UK, that after 14 years, Labour Party is back in power, and that is just because of the stand of Mr. Rishi Sunak on the conflict of Palestine. Uh,
Right, and Maria, when we talk about, of course, situation in Gaza, how do you see the significance of misinformation in this conflict, especially in terms of humanitarian crisis that we have been witnessing for past few months?
Yeah, Maryam, first I would like to say something because as a Kashmiri I fear for my life as well, because the precedent which Israel has set and the way it's been backed by US, UK, European countries is not actually something good for our region as well, because what we have seen, Israel and India, they are very close allies, and what Modi has changed his policies regarding Kashmir situation as well. So all they wanted actually in past to occupy the land either as a Gaza or as a Kashmir. So they have issued around 4 million domiciles for the Indian people to live in Kashmir. So
Right.
it's the same thing which we sometimes I think is it's not only for that region, it's for our region as well, because when you see uncertainty in this situation where there is a mass genocide, atrocities committed by not only Israelis but from US, UK and their allies, their troops, they are being committing genocide. It's a bit something you just don't want to talk about in front of even a children, because the graphics, the trauma, it's everything. Yeah. It's after 7th of October, I think, when it started happening, half of the world actually stopped using social media just to avoid that trauma, because they just couldn't bear the pain which the 20 million people are being going through. So yeah, it's a repetitive.
Right.
We've just been talking about the human crisis, but the thing is, what actually, how we contributing to that, to make their lives better? Are we actually sending some ambassadors or somebody to the OIC or to UN to address Palestinian people's issue?
Right, of course,
Yeah.
Sheharyar, the role of international community comes into play, and we have been discussing in our programs about the role of UN as well. And when we look at the situation at this point in time, UN Secretary General has called for an immediate halt to Israel's operation, citing an already explosive situation. What are going to be implications if this recent call that he made 2-3 days ago is not heard, and something is not done regarding the humanitarian crisis, especially when we talk about the polio spread in Gaza and also other health issues that are unfolding within not only Gaza but also within the region as well?
So Maryam, when it comes to putting an end to this conflict and basically pressurizing the Netanyahu government on ending this conflict, there are like a lot of options on the table. If there was like will on part of the Western stakeholders to basically take the Netanyahu government to task, there are like a lot of international options that are there, and I don't think that the world, especially the Western world, is doing enough. There could have been international boycotts. There could have been trade embargoes, there could have been severe sanctions, We just like witnessed Olympics happening in Paris, and Russia
Israel was
was basically boycotted.
Yes, but Israel
And
was allowed
Israel
to
wasn't.
participate.
Israel was allowed to basically, and even in the various football tournaments that are happening in Europe, Israel was still invited. So this tacit support that Israel is getting from its Western stakeholders, Western partners, is emboldening their government on to continue this genocide that is being committed. I don't think there is any pressure on the Netanyahu government. Yes, there is pressure on the streets from the grassroots level.
But still, Sheharyar, with all that context in mind, how likely is it that US and other mediators are going to be reaching a final deal before the upcoming US election?
So US will definitely be presenting a deal. President Biden has already said that in partnership with Egypt and Qatar, they will, as you mentioned, they will come up with a take it or leave it deal. But what if Netanyahu decides not to take it? Are there any options with the Western stakeholders on pressurizing Netanyahu, especially so close to the US elections when they basically need support from all sides? And we know that which lobbies in the US basically have a huge sway over how the elections will be going on. So I really don't see a lot of hope in the US pressurizing the Netanyahu government. Yes, the pressure will be coming from the grassroots level, from the people of Israel who basically want a ceasefire deal. The pressure will be coming from the UN agencies, but I personally believe that's a toothless agency anyways. It will be coming from regional stakeholders as well. Now, reading international publications and newspapers that have historically been very pro-Israel, they are also criticizing Netanyahu's role right now. Narrative is changing, but this is a bit too late. When it comes to the right-wing government that is in power and Netanyahu's war cabinet, I don't think those people are ready to go for any sort of like compromise, any sort of like ceasefire.
Right, but Sheharyar, we know that this conflict is not limited to the to Gaza, but of course the spillover is now very much evident in the neighboring countries. So how do you think the situation is going to be changing in Middle East, particularly in regions that were already unstable like Syria? And of course, there are a lot of non-state actors that could be becoming very much active and effective in those regions.
So, Maryam, right now that is my whole thesis, that the war cabinet or the government, which basically constitutes of a lot of like right-wing conservative Zionists that are part of this government, they have Netanyahu as a face. We keep on basically talking about Netanyahu, his personal ambitions, his political career, his personal gains, they're there. But we keep on forgetting that the whole cabinet is constituted of people who are warmongers. They basically want the conflict to spread. And even like 2 or 3 days ago, there was this, addition to the objectives of the war that Netanyahu pointed towards, and he basically said like maybe we'll need to increase our war objectives to basically make the northern part of Israel secure, because a lot of like people, because of the attacks, retaliatory attacks from coming from Lebanon's Hezbollah, a lot of those people have also become IDPs within Israel as well. And now Netanyahu and his war cabinet are alluding to the fact that maybe we need to increase the objectives of the war and to include making the northern part of Israel more secure. So what is he trying to basically say? That this war will continue for an unprecedented amount of time? Will they basically attack Lebanon? Will they increase the theater of war to various other countries as well? That is what their objective is. And even with this like take it or leave it deal, we've been doing this for over 6 to 8 months, Maryam. These deals are coming. This is probably the 4th or 5th deal that has been presented by the US. All of those previous deals have been rejected by Netanyahu and his war cabinet.
Every time a new point was added, which was unacceptable to the other stakeholders.
Right now, the US cannot take a firm position because of their own elections that are coming. They will probably lose the support of Muslim and Arab voters, but I think they're willing to make a sacrifice in that sense. If the Biden administration wanted to take some harsh decisions or tough decisions, they would have taken it by now. I don't think this close to the elections they would be taking any drastic measures as well. I personally think the people of Palestine will be suffering. this genocide will continue and this destruction will continue on taking place.
And the region is also going to be suffering. Dr. Amna, how do you think that the outcome of this ongoing conflict is going to be impacting the power dynamics within Middle East?
Obviously, it is having a lot of implications. As Sheharyar mentioned, war is being escalated and non-state actors are involved. Hezbollah is fully involved, and Israel is taking this pretext to extend the avenue and horizon of war on the account that they have been attacked by proxies of Iran, and they have been attacked by non-state actors, and they are going to fix it. And I think that that would extend the attacks on the sovereign states of the neighboring neighborhood of Israel, and that would be the Lebanon, the Syria, and then Houthis are already being targeted. I think the war would be escalated, and this is the right time for the regional powers to understand that if they would stand with the United States or Israel, then the war would knock at their door, and they cannot be isolated. And if they think that they can be avoided from the damages of war, it is not possible because most of them are border sharing with Israel. And Israel want to extend this war, and they want to achieve all their goals, that the supremacy of or their hegemony and their strategic stability in the region. And this is the right time they are achieving it, because they have seen that nobody is interfering in the genocide of Palestine. So they can have this understanding that Arab world is, they have closed their eyes from the genocide of Palestine, and they would not interfere. So I think that war would be escalated, and if there would be no compromise, no agreement in the near future, in next few days, and but the possibility of overthrow of Netanyahu is very much there, and that depends on the commitment of the Israeli masses. And in the US has nothing to do that. US has been following this policy of which the Israel is just following, and as Madam Maria just mentioned, that Indian government is doing in Kashmir, that US has been doing when they were doing westward expansion in their own land, and they occupied the land of Indians in North America. So I think that they are confident that by this policy, Netanyahu would be able to capture and grab more and more power and more territory, not only in Palestine but in the neighboring country, as they previously achieved Golan Heights, they captured. And say, in the same way, they can extend their territory in Syria, in Jordan, and they have already launched military campaign in West Bank to capture the West Bank, which is very weak in terms of military resistance. So I think the war would be escalated, and the consequences would be not only for the region but for the whole world.
Right, right. And Maria, when we talk about the situation within Gaza, World Food Program has warned of imminent famine in Gaza. How realistic is this threat at this point in time, and what needs to be done to address the humanitarian crisis by the international human rights organizations?
Yeah, food crisis, water crisis, they were there from the day first when, Israel started bombing Gaza, because people were actually struggling to survive there. There was no infrastructure left,
and now
no
they are
stocks left, everything, But sadly, I fear for the future generation. What sort of a message actually we are giving to the younger generation is war is the biggest business in this world. More than food or anything else, you need a thought first to survive. So the thought of this survival is just there as a fear in younger children. So of course, it has a long-lasting impact, not only in the people of Gaza, Israel, Middle East, Europeans, but of course in Asia as well, because it's something which we don't want to see happening in 21st century.
Right, right. And lastly, Sheharyar, in your opinion, what are the prospects for peace in this conflict at this point in time, and what needs to be done by UN and other international human rights organizations?
Maryam, I don't think anything is in the hand of the UN or international, human rights organizations. I think the only, I would say, effective strategy would be the US to change its course, and the US would have to basically get out of character and basically push Netanyahu to take this deal, the latest one that they are going to present. Again, Egypt and Qatar, they can be mediators, but they won't have any influence over Israel or the Netanyahu government. I think the American side would want to, or would have to basically see whether the elections that are upcoming, would they basically need the Muslim vote or the Arab vote, or are they thinking that they would go past the line without those votes? And obviously,
right,
in a lot of states which are swing in nature, I think the chances are that the Democratic Party would basically lose a lot by not taking any stern or decisive action in this war.
Right, right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheharyar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Ms. Maria Iqbal Tarana, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Amna Mehmood, for joining us in today's program. Of course, as we conclude today's discussion, the situation in Gaza and of course within the region as well remains complex and heartbreaking. The world is watching, and of course the protesters are on streets, but the future still remains uncertain. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.